where we're focusing our attention, in addition to providing some bubble traps for the analyzers, so they're not getting a bubble running all the way up through there and triggering an alarm that's basically a false alarm at that point.
And that's, I understand that from the turbidity, but the first paragraph, the permeability was good on all trains. It was excellent on train 3 and 4. Train 1 and 2 averaged, it's a lower number. So, and then the TMP on all trains were good, but unit 1 and 2 averaged 0.56 and 3 and 4 averaged around 0.3.
Right, and those, we're dealing in pretty small numbers there. I think the best reference point to see on that is excellent TMP is below a 1, and all trains are functioning, well below a 1 at that point.
I guess what just struck me was the fact that the membranes are all approximately the same age, and I'm a little surprised to see a difference like that.
Well, trains, the membranes in 2 of the trains are actually installed in January, and then the newest or last 2 trains were installed in May. So there's a little bit of difference in age, but in confirming with Suez's engineering department, these numbers are absolutely fine.
Okay. On the discharge data, I think one of the things that would be extremely helpful is if, just like the Suez report is color coded, if this data here had a red, green, yellow color coding associated with it. And we've talked several times in the past about trending data on the critical parameters, especially the nitrogen and phosphorus discharge, so we can see how it's operating over time.
Okay, so you're talking about the data that we're providing that comes on the monthly DMR. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, it's that. If there was just a graph that was attached to it, taking
okay.
These are just single points for the month, trending it over time.
Okay, and it's not going to be a daily. It's not going to be a daily item though, because composite sampling is done, maybe 2-3 times a month, depends on the permit. I'm off the top of my head, I think it's just once a week. So those numbers, it's not going to be a huge graph. I just wanted to make sure you weren't thinking it was a daily graph.
No, but just like this is a composite number that's presented according to the NRPDS, if it was plotted by month. So, because I know we've talked in the past, there seems to be some variation in the way the plant is processing nitrogen and phosphorus, and to see that over time.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, because that's directly, it relates back to the injection of alum, which is temperature makes a huge difference that time of year. So, okay, I think I understand what you're asking for. So we'll put something together for you, and we can adjust it based on your need.
Okay. That was all I had.
I had a concern regarding the, I guess, the stormwater event that we had on July 10th. That's when we had several inches of rain, and the amount of I&I that appeared at the treatment plant. We were at 1.6 million gallons at that point, which is very high. And then I look at the following days, and it dropped down, of course, significantly from that high. but it stayed up for several days before it got back down to where it had been before the event, which leads me to believe it's, that was the main event on the 10th was a lot of inflow, but the fact that it stayed up for several days indicates its infiltration also, because the groundwater level was higher after the rainfall. I mean, should we be looking at you too, Charlie, about when was the last time we did an I&I study, and are we looking to do that again? Darren, I talked to Darren about this, and we were going to look at the flow metering at the various pumping stations to see if we could narrow down where this was occurring. But that is significant. I know it was a major storm event, so I expect it to go up considerably, but this is higher than I would have guessed.
4 inches of rain.
So
We are definitely looking at the I&I. We did do the additional monitoring on all of our lift stations, and we've asked, we're looking at trending data, et cetera. Paul and White Marsh has been watching those things. We've asked them for any kind of insights that they have been gleaning from that information. Paul, do you have anything to add?
No, not time, Darren. As you can see on the graph from July, we had the one significant rain event, with 4 inches of rain. And looking back over the last, 5-6 months, we haven't seen that type of I&I impact since Darren and you guys have done some sealing work and some other things out in the collection system. I'm sorry. So this was the first really glaring thing that said, hey, we've got something out there that we should be looking for. So we've had that discussion, and I know Darren's talked to some of the other consultants on this. So there's something in the works. We just haven't had that type of data jump out and say, hey, there's something else here we need to look at.
Yeah. I know that was a very unusual event, but it does indicate we have some issues out there maybe we should be looking at.
Right, and it's going to be isolating it to which part of town.
Right.
Which, that's not the easiest thing to do. I was talking with one of our staff member that's very good in collection systems. He said, well, the easiest thing to do is when it's raining that hard, go around and pop manholes and see where the flow is. I don't know if anybody wants to do that when it's, raining so hard, but
that's tough. But you can pop them afterward to see if it's keeping up. That's the thing. And at least that tells you where the infiltration may be coming from. But, we have those meters on the pumping stations, as I understand it, so that should help us pin it down a little bit. The other question, Darren, the dirty pictures you just sent me, as you called them.
Let's clarify that.
Yeah, we better. It was your turn, not mine. Of the filters that were pulled, so they look pretty dirty. The filters, is that unusually dirty, or is that typically dirty? I didn't have a feel because I really didn't see pictures of the filters before we had the incident in December to compare them to normal operation. So, Paul, maybe you could speak to that.
Absolutely. I was very pleased with the condition when we pulled them. That is very typical.
Okay.
Of pulling a cassette out prior to, for an inspection. What was even more encouraging was what they looked like after being washed off.
Yeah.
They're just as nice and white as, you could expect from anything, that's been used past new. So
they weren't identified, and I was wondering if that was the washed version, because they really did look clean.
Yeah, there was, I sent Darren pictures of before and after.
Okay.
So yeah, we were very, very pleased with how that all came out. We'll be packaging all those up. They'll go to Suez to the lady that works on the Insight account with us. She'll be able to factor that type of information into monitoring the health of the plant.
Was that a physical wash or was it a combination chemical?
That was just a physical wash. We want to go ahead. We think that we're ready to do a recovery clean, which is a chemical wash.
Okay,
With as busy as we are right now with the amount of incoming flow, our plan is to start this the second or third week in September, and at a minimum do 1 train per week, which should put us into the about mid-October, and all 4 trains will have gotten a recovery clean with chlorine. And in looking at them, I would say that you could go either way on a recovery clean. I believe that it's in our best interest to do a recovery clean on them at this point. We should be good to go for 6-8 months after that, I would say.
great.
So along those lines, I haven't seen the dirty pictures yet. Paul, can you characterize the material that came off? Was it fibrous or grit or?
I would say that I wouldn't call it fibrous. I know one of the issues prior was ragging, I think is what they called it, where it was an
Right.
accumulation of items that were basically ground up out in the system and worked their way through. We did not see ragging like that.
Okay,
There were, a few bits and pieces here and there, but more of what it looked like was just, wastewater that was thicker, I guess I should say, oxidized. So it just clings to the outside until you hit it with some water, and then it washed right off. So nothing exciting. I think that the ragging portion of it, we're in good shape on that, well under control. Not that there was no ragging at all, but it was so small and minor, they just grabbed it and went right on.
Is it typical to check these every 6 to 8 months, or should that happen more often or less often? What's your perspective?
Yes, actually, the rule of thumb in the PM manual is to once a month just pull a cassette and take a look. This has actually been 3 months since we upgraded to the new Leap Air system. And with this time of year, it's a little more difficult to take all 4 trains or part of the trains offline. So this was the best opportunity, considering last week, to get a good look at them. We had the opportunity to look at all 4 trains, which is can't always do that during the middle of summer. Hopefully that answers your question. Monthly, you should look at least 1 cassette, and over the course of 3 or 4 months, you're looking at all trains. But since they were new, the system that's processing is new, we felt it was important to get after that first quarter to pull them all up and get a good look at them. None of us are familiar with the Leap Air system. That's new technology for Suez. So now that we've seen it, we know that it works
Tom
well.
was saying with the green, yellow, red, and Darren and I were talking about some of those kind of metrics today and the other day as well. So if that was a metric that we should hit from a standard basis, is that something we can measure on a monthly, quarterly basis and have that kind of being that green, yellow, red? Are we hitting those targets, et cetera?
Yes, actually, that information will show up in the bi-weekly report we get from Suez. It will note a recovery clean or any other type of cleaning, and if it doesn't, that would be a comment that I would insert for you, because you may see some readings somewhere in there that look odd, and you're going to want to know why they look odd. So I insert a lot of comments on these charts. Been working on those with Mr. Panetta, and that's pretty important. So we would make that note for you.
Okay. I'm doing enough, by the way, that it all looks odd. So thank you.
Okay, hey, no problem.
I had a quick question. You had mentioned that you had sent the sludge in to the county to see about having it analyzed so that we could use their upcoming sludge, I don't know, burn system or whatever it's called. Have you gotten anything back from them as to what the analysis was?
I will let Darren field that question.
Yeah, so all of the information on our solids has been given to the county. They've looked at it and I think they're pretty much waiting for their plant to finish being built. And I think they're still at least a month and a half out before that happens. So that's what I've heard.
Okay.
One of the other, somebody has asked online, what is I&I? So as we talk about I&I, that's infiltration and inflow. And so while we have pipes that help move sewage through those pipes that are underground and in the water table, also manholes that have holes in the lids and not sealed perfectly around the top, and none of them are. When it rains, water can get into that, and if it becomes significant, a lot of that water will get in, comes into the pipes, and we have to treat it. One of my greatest concerns for that inflow, we put cups in the top of the manholes themselves, which helps stop that water from coming in. That's on almost every single one of our manholes, and so I think we've done a good job of taking care of that. We still have to get the word out that I believe we have a lot of sump pumps that are tied into our system. Instead of going to the ground, going to atmosphere, they're going into our wastewater treatment. So that's I&I is inflow and infiltration.
Any other questions on the White Marsh report? No? Then we'll go into the president's report. And the only thing that I have to mention is we have our new board member, Earl Webb, who was actually sworn in at our previous executive session. So this is his first appearance at a full open session. And Earl, we're really pleased to have you.
I'm happy to be here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're a great addition to our team with your background and experience. So thanks for being willing to serve.
Thank you.
And the general manager's report.
I've got a couple of items. Number one, we've recently received a proposal from Sargent & Lundy. They've done our electric study. We'd asked them to look at the possibilities of doing a battery storage project, actually two. One, a large project down at the Schley Avenue power plant, also a solar/battery project out at our well fields where our water comes from. They came back with a proposal talking about a battery and what they could do for us out at the well field. We'll get into more detail on that at a later date. We're waiting for them to come up with that same kind of detail for what's down at Schley Avenue and what their relationship will be with us. So that's forthcoming. Number two, Robert Kennedy had asked for a rate review as we've gone significant into our capital projects. That we see that as a big bite. And so I have approached UFS. We'll see if, and we're looking at possibly going to another rate design consultant to help us out with that. Number three, we've talked about stormwater. The mayor had asked that we take a look at the open space, and we're working with Tom Panetta to take a look at that. We haven't forgotten you, Mayor. We're still considering those things. Number four, I have the 5G. We're looking at doing a position letter for that. We've also, I want to make sure that everybody knows that it's a two-part application that we're looking at doing. The city has their responsibility, taking a look at the aesthetics, making sure things are built right for the character of Lewis, while we look more at the practical, the operational side to make sure that it's being built that doesn't interfere with our electric system and that it's done correctly on the poles that might happen. So we're working in a partnership with the city, with that 5G. Tom Panetta, again, represents us on that, the board, looking at that agreement and what we're putting out there, and that is also forthcoming.
Any questions for the general manager? All right, we'll go into presentation. Item 8, presentation of appreciation for the effort of 10 years of service of Jack Lesher. Jack, welcome back. We're going to go around the room and let every member of the board and the staff, general manager and assistant general manager and the mayor and our attorney, tell you what we really think of you. So we're going to start off. Tom Owen, why don't you take the lead, and then we'll go around
Okay.
to each person.
Well, I've had the pleasure of having Jack and his friend over to our porch for COVIDing drinks, and that was fun. And one of the things Jack and I used to do was meet at LT's for a coffee in the morning and breakfast, and he always ordered a number one. That's all he had to say was number one, and they knew exactly what he wanted. So that was fun. And since he's still here in Lewis, we'll see a lot of him.
Great. Robert?
Jack, I'm going to miss your good humor and your wise counsel on these arcane accounting matters, but I wish you all the best, and I hope your days will be filled with happiness and exploring new adventures. I want to thank you for your service, and as you travel, stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Tom Panetta.
Jack, I remember the first time I met you at the candidates forum, and I tried to figure out who the hell is he? But on the serious side, you have been a major part of helping me to get up to speed over the last 2.5 years. Your insight into obviously the accounting side has given me a great deal of confidence, and your just general insight into the matters that have come before us have always been extremely helpful to our deliberation. But mostly, you're always good to be a good butt of a joke. We're going to miss you for that.
You know, I am so concerned about when you're going to get up to speed.
Ooh. Hey, Jack, this is a one-way road.
All right.
Earl, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I don't have anything to roast, but I got to tell you, I sat down with Jack at his house. He took me through a lot of the documents, a lot of different perspectives. We've since had 3 calls as well. So he's done just a fantastic job of getting me up to speed. I'm not as far along as I'd like to be, but I got to tell you, because of his efforts and his dedication, I'm a lot further than most people would have been. So I really, truly appreciate it and look forward to a long friendship at this point.
Mayor?
Well, Jack, you and I go way back before your 10 years on BPW. So I've known your sense of humor and appreciated it for many years. So you brought that to the board through some very difficult situations that we've dealt with. So I do really appreciate all you've done for the board, and I appreciate your candor as we've dealt with some circumstances that required a sense of humor as things got tough. And I think that levity has helped us get through some things. So I appreciate that. Obviously, your accounting capabilities and all of that has helped the board. And I certainly wish you all the best as you go forward. I know we used to call you Tumbleweed because we never knew where you were. Maybe you're going to settle down and spend a little more time in Lewis now. I don't know. But I'll look forward to running into you at Weiss and other places as you move about the city. It's good to see you out and about and moving around so freely. Keep it up, and look forward to seeing you out and about. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mayor.
Darren?
I think you need to give Mike Hoffman a shot. I mean, a opportunity.
Well, I was going to give,
Mike.
well, go ahead, Mike.
Yep, I'm happy to step in.
Great.
Jack, I'm really going to miss you. You know, the interesting thing, back when I was with Glenn's firm, when I first started, it was the first time that I met Jack. And that was actually one of the first hearings that I've ever covered as a new attorney. And right off the bat, Jack was welcoming, but also didn't miss an opportunity to haze me and tell one of his famous jokes. So, I mean, I will certainly miss your humor, Jack. You are an absolute gentleman and a professional. You are knowledgeable. You were always prepared, particularly on the accounting side. And to echo what the mayor said, you always understood perspective, and you brought perspective to the issues, whether they were kind of difficult, contentious. You were there with a moment of levity, really to remind us not to take ourselves too seriously, that life is short, and that to kind of work together towards solutions. Tremendous addition to this board. I'm sure the board and the city appreciate your service. Me personally, I'm going to miss you. I probably won't miss you ragging me about my bills, but I'll miss you for everything else. You really are a good guy, and I appreciate everything, Jack.
Thank you kindly.
Austin?
All right, so I had to write mine down. When I first started the BPW back in 2016, Jack took me under his wing. He instilled many core values in relation to accounting, financials, management, and of course, meeting up for after hours adult beverages, as he would like to call them. Jack and I spent a lot of time together, both at work and outside of work. We attended many SCAT dinners, DMEC gatherings, and conferences over the years. And we would occasionally get together for a bite to eat and just reminisce about life. Jack has been a great role model and will always have a place at the BPW to wreak havoc and also drop some Lancaster County goodies off, which include shoe fly pie, whoopie pies, and pretzels. Jack's legacy will live on at the BPW for many years to come, and I believe Earl is the perfect choice to fill your shoes. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors and adventures, Jack. We all love you.
Sure do. Darren, do you want to go or do you want me to?
I'll go. I'll let you finish. Jack has been fantastic. Just like he took Austin under his wings, he did the same for me, and he's helped us out immensely. One of the things that, so this doesn't sound too much like an obituary. We had to watch out for a couple of things. You always had to watch out for Jack. He loves to go to the meetings. He's always introducing himself to somebody, especially the pretty girls. You got to watch that. You got to kind of run. There's a saying that I've learned recently. It says that there's no limit to what you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. And Jack has been one of those rare people that's able to go and do something because the end deserves it without ever looking for anything for himself. And he's truly been a selfless servant to the community, to the BPW. The other thing is, he reminded me a lot of my father-in-law. None of you know him, but he was wonderful in that he did some great things, but you never knew it because he never bragged about it. He just went about helping individuals, and everybody thought he was their best friend. Well, that's Jack. Jack does the same thing. Everybody knows Jack. Everybody's his friend. He treats everybody the same. And so that friendship and love I appreciate and treasure. And we'll keep it up. All right? So stay out of trouble.
Well, oh.
I-
You got me short on that one. So I am gonna miss,
Well,
You got press has got the last word here. Sorry.
Oh,
You may get the last word, but let me share my.
Jack, I want to totally agree with everything that's been said here. Thank you for 10 great years. You know, you've been such a staunch member of this team and so important to us that we really appreciate it. And you've not only have done it here, you've done it at the Historic Society, the Overfalls in your church, and I'm sure there's many others that I'm missing, but you know, we think we've got you as our own, but you've been doing so much that for this community as a whole. Even though you're no longer a board member, you're still part of our team. We'll consider that going forward, and we appreciate the offer to continue to help us out as if we have questions going forward. I'm going to miss you, like even coming into the meetings. It's fun watching you work the crowd as you come in, you know, shaking everybody's hand and saying small talk to them. You're like a politician in an election year. And when you get on at the table, it's always fun when you have to give a report, because as soon as you get up, we all kind of lean back and know we're in for a treat, or at least some time. And you usually have a prologue to what you're going to be talking about, and then an extended version of what you're going to be talking about, then an epilogue at the end, all being humorous. And it's always a joy just to have you giving a report. And as I guess the mayor said, you know, that you bring such a joy and positive attitude to the meetings. You know, I've seen you, and even in tense meetings, you were the one that kind of broke the tension in the room by something you said, or, you know, something that you did. You're very special, Jack. We really do appreciate you being here. And we'll keep in touch. We really do appreciate everything you've done, not only for the BPW, but the entire community. I think Darren has a couple things there he wanted to provide to you. We have some gifts for you. Darren, do you want to?
I do.
Oh, boy.
All right, there we go.
You want to explain that, Chris?
Oh, man.
This, Jack, we had this prepared for you. Darren has the large version of it there with you, and it's not framed yet, but we're going to have it framed. So you can see that we're thanking you for your 10 years, and you're riding out of town on the Tumbleweed Express. So you can have it framed, and you can keep that as a memory of serving with this
That's okay. That's fine, and thank you. Oh, my God. And
Just so you don't forget who we are. This is a hoodie, and it says Jack Tumbleweed. With the BPW over here.
Very cool.
We got you
Very
too. How's that?
boy, I'll tell you. Oh, boy.
Thank you very, very much. Anything you want to say?
Well, all I want to say is there's certain people who made comments, and I am awaiting the free meal.
Free meal.
In case you don't know who you are. And of course, there's always Mike Huffman. I mean, he shall remain. You know, just because of what he does. That's his problem. No, this has been a great period of time. I think what I learned was life is short. Yes, Mike, it is. And that was a scary part. I didn't know I was old. I have been told that I am, but I'm going to try to get over it. And thanks to everybody who has helped.
Well, Jack, you fought two major problems all at once, really serious medical issues, and you beat them both, particularly the COVID. And you may have been knocked down, but boy, you're back up. And I know you don't feel like you're at 100% yet, but you sure are getting there. I hope you do get 100% again.
I'm working on it. Tell you.
Press, I just like to correct Jack. In his case, you can age, but you don't have to get old. And Jack's spirit certainly is not that of an old person.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all right. Hope to get back to.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, I'll do it anyway.
Well, we all love you, Jack. Thank you very much.
Take care, Jack.
All righty.
Okay. We're now in old business. We're not referring to you anymore, Jack. This is old business, but you're not in this one. Open forum general discussion to receive the 2019-2020 annual audit report. And Jack, you can translate this as they present it to us, okay, and tell us what they're really saying.
And I know you always enjoyed my interpretation.
Yeah. We were more confused afterwards. But.
That's it.
Yeah, we'd like to introduce, we have Kimberly Stank and Kate, or what's your name?
I'm Kimberly Stank. I'm Kayla DeMar. We're from Zelenkowski Axelrod. So we're your auditors. And we'd like to thank you for allowing us to go after that great presentation. We hate when we have to go after good presentations because we're going to talk about your financial statements and they're not. I believe you got all received the draft of the financials. And really, this is a story of what happened to the board or for the board or with the board over the last year. Your year ends March 31st. The report itself has two opinions in it. The very first opinion is a clean opinion. That's an unqualified, unmodified opinion. So that's good news. There were no issues that we had mentioned. The one thing that has changed in this opinion is we did add an emphasis of matter paragraph. And it's just basically discussing that COVID happened and we're not sure what the impact will be on you. And because of the timing of it, especially with your year end. So it'll kind of be an adventure to see how that impacts you as the board. At the very, I'm going to touch the beginning and the end, and then I'll let Kayla touch in the middle. At the very end of the report is a second opinion. And that is a report on internal controls over financial reporting. So that's really looking at your internal controls. We do a bunch of different testing on your internal controls, and we did not find any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. Nothing really that needs to be brought to your attention. And there were no issues with compliance. So that's the very end of the report. I'm going to let Kayla talk a little bit about your financial statements themselves.
So if you take a look at the statement of net position, you guys do continue to have a healthy asset balance. And moving into your statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, this year you did have a positive increase in net position, so that's always a good indicator. It was slightly less than last year, but your operating revenues decreased slightly with the mild winter you guys have been having. You continue with your capital assets to have numerous new projects, although this year we did see a lot of them complete and transfer out of construction in progress. And then I would really just refer you to, in the management's discussion and analysis, pages 8.
Excuse me, I hate to interrupt. Maybe I misheard, didn't hear you correctly. You're talking about page 5, the statement of net position.
So that would actually be page 10.
Okay.
Mhm.
It's always good to be on it's always good to be on the right page. Okay, I'm there. Now, did I hear you say that the change in the net position was less than last year? That's what I didn't understand.
That's, if you flip to page 10, or excuse me, 11, you'll see that.
Less from a variation perspective.
Right.
Yes.
But it still was a positive increase, which is good.
I guess I'm just looking at the bottom line. The net position end of the year in 2020 was 51 million versus 50 million last year. So that's an increase, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay. I apologize. Continue.
No
That's
problem.
okay. That's okay. It's hard being remote, we know. We know.
Just another question. So when you talked about COVID impact, and it's something that Darren and I looked at as well, there are certain write-offs that we've had as a result potentially of COVID. Is that something that might be recapturable, do you think?
I don't know what your state and your county is doing as far as your CARES money.
Mm-hmm.
There may be some CARES money that you're eligible to receive.
Okay.
So some municipalities, some authorities are being able to recoup some of that.
Okay. It's not a material amount per se, but I was curious. Okay, thank you. I'll look into that. The other thing you talked about in the very initial first pieces of the opening, you talked about some of the different responsibilities. Do you feel we have enough separation of responsibilities and duties within the office? Is that something you guys can attest to, or would that be something separate from what you guys have done?
The one thing that we do look at is your segregation of duties. So, and your internal controls. The testing that we've done over your internal controls and your segregation of duties, we don't see any significant issues with it. Any office could use additional people. You do have a small accounting office, But at this point, you do segregate your duties. We feel that you're stretched. Unfortunately, this year was a little different because we were remote. We did pretty much a remote audit. But in the prior year, we just noticed that Chris is really stretched. So, and your staff, it seems to be stretched as far as time. So segregation of duties, we see that you have it in place. Internal controls, we didn't see any issues with them. It appears that you're following your policies. But we would recommend anybody could, if you had the ability to add people, and you could add people and, relieve some of that stress, it helps.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. These financials are in draft form at this point. We do need a couple extra things, but also wanted to open it up if there's any questions that you have or anything that you feel need to be brought to our attention.
I have two questions, just probably more for clarification on my part than anything. On page 18, your note 2, you listed several pending changes to accounting principles. And I guess the question that I have is, who's doing the analysis? Who should do the analysis? Does the BPW need to formally adopt these statements? And if so, how do we do it and when must we do them?
If you'll look, each one is listed in the pending changes that tells you the year where it will be implemented. Significant to you will be leases, and that is, it actually got pushed back. So in 2023 is when that one will be in effect. Other than that, capitalized interest goes away. So that's really nothing that you need to do with that. Other than that, I don't think that there's anything that's significant impact. Do you think there's anything? There's no other significant impacts on your statements as a whole. You don't need to adopt them. It's GASB, so they force it on you. So there's nothing you really need to do except when we get to 2023, probably 2022, we'll probably want to start talking about leases. As you're entering new leases, you'll want to start, maintaining that information, just thinking ahead. But at this point, there's nothing that needs to be done.
Well, that's good. I appreciate that. And as we get closer to 2023, I'm assuming that Darren can call upon you, or you will advise him as to what changes need to be implemented in a timely fashion so that we are in compliance when next year.
We'll walk you through it. We will definitely walk you through it. We've already developed. So the one thing that happened with COVID is GASB actually pushed back implementation dates on all of their GASBs. So you actually would have had to implement the leases earlier. However, because of that, so we were already in the preparation stage of getting ready for the lease implementation. So we've already started to gather information and creating a spreadsheet. So we'll work with you.
Excellent. The second question I had was on page 21, note 7. The first paragraph, the last sentence, if we have the a same amount of $83,691 for both years. Is that correct? That was on the Highland Acres construction.
We'll have to look into that. We haven't broken out.
Could you restate that, Robert?
I'd have to look into the
We'll have to
details
look
of
at the
that.
details of that and get back to you on that one.
What were you asking, Robert? I didn't quite catch.
On page 21 of the report, note 7 on notes receivable,
Right.
it discusses the Highland Acres development, and the last full sentence reads, the amount owed to the board as of March 31st, 2020 and 2019 is the same amount, $83,691. So I just question whether or not, I would have thought some payments had been made by the property owners, and that should have been less in 2020 than the previous year.
We'll look into it and we'll get back to you on that one. Good, that may be a good catch, but it may be actually accurate. We'll look.
And the final question that I had was on page 31. And it's just, I'm assuming it's just a boilerplate. You said county's net position, pension liability and ending. And should that be BPW's?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. When we first start, when we do these, we don't create from scratch. We steal from another and
But it's a draft, and that's why, I thought we could check these things and clear them up before it becomes a final.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And this is the first presentation, and this is simply a presentation. We're not asking you to accept it today. Next month at the next board meeting, that's when I'm going to ask that you accept it after we've made the changes with Kim and her team.
Right.
Anything else? Anybody else have any questions? I thought the management's discussion, I guess Darren put that together, pages 8 and 9. I thought that was a really nice summary of the year. It wasn't, totally detailed, but I thought it really summed things up very nicely. Any other questions, comments? Well, thank you very much.
Excuse me, Press.
Yes, Robert.
If there are no other questions, I just want to offer my congratulations to Darren for receiving once again an unqualified financial statement from our auditors. That's important because it means that our financial statements conform to generally accepted accounting principles and fairly present the BPW's financial position for the past year. It also confirms that the BPW paid its bills and is ending the year in the black. So Darren, well done.
Thank you, Robert. That's very fitting. Thank you, Darren.
And again, if you have any questions of us, feel free, Darren or anybody on the team has our information. Please feel free to reach out to us and we would be happy to answer questions or discuss anything with you.
Thank you very much.
I would also just like to say that Kim and Kate, they've been very responsive and easy to work with. They've gone extra mile with the COVID. Very much appreciative, easy to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Still in old business, item 10, open forum, general discussion of DENREC's conciliation order of consent, the Secretary's order 2020-W-0025. Mr. Gordon.
We've received the order. We have a list. The order comes from the Secretary of DENREC. It's in the packet. It's available to all. Ultimately, there is a fine of $64,000. That's going to be covered by White Marsh in other discussions, but I'm going to ask Tom Panetta. He's helping to put together the final report that we'll be responding to for this consent order. Tom?
Yeah, so first, the conciliation order is for a fine of $64,000, which when you consider what the upward limit of the fine could have been over $400,000 was, I think, a recognition by DENREC of the actions that the board and White Marsh took to resolve the issue and mitigate it. The specific actions in the conciliation is item 1, within 30 days to provide an update of the action plan. So what I'm currently doing is using the corrective actions out of the root cause report. And yesterday, Darren and Chris from GMB and I did a walk down to the plant to help flush out the last parts of the response. If you remember, one of the corrective actions was to look at ways of improving redundancy and reliability of the plant. And GMB has an action right now to, they're compiling a report to look at specific single point of failures or other areas of the plant where we could enhance its reliability. A major portion will also be to look at the SCADA and control system at the plant, to look for single point of failures and ensure that it is the alarm functions are set to the, are designed so that we get early notification. I'm shooting to have by this Friday, so 30 days is September 6th. I'm shooting for, by this Friday to have a draft of our response to DENREC out to GMB and to Darren for their review so that we can use that as our closure. The second item is the updated emergency contingency plan. That actually is covered in the corrective actions that we have in the corrective action report. So it will be part of my response to the root cause. Darren received last week, I believe it was, the interim statement from on the wetlands, and the interim statement basically says that there's no impact on the wetlands from the spill, and there's no need for additional inspections down the line. So we will provide that in the response, and we probably can close this item out as not an interim, but as a final.
Great, great.
So that's where we are relative to the conciliation order.
Thank you, Tom. I have been in touch with the secretary and told him that we would be submitting things, just confirmed that we would be submitting things on time. So he's anticipating that.
Great.
Press,
Yes.
Preston, you made the discussion with the secretary that perhaps that $64,000 could be used for upgrades to the plant that we're doing. And I think you floated that by him as well.
Yeah, it was a suggestion that asking if he'd be willing to entertain that. So I haven't gotten a response yet.
Got it. And I would just simply make the statement to the community that when this is all said and done, we have high confidence that there's not going to be a harm to the ratepayers of the Board of Public Works.
Okay. Darren, since we had that issue this past week, could you just bring everybody up to speed on that at the treatment plant?
Can I ask Paul if he would like to give us a report on what happened there? That'd be all right with you, Press?
Yes, that'd be fine, Paul.
Yes, thank you. So I think probably everybody is aware of the incident that happened last Wednesday as far as some overflow happening at the plant. It was an odd set of circumstances that we are investigating. We want to make sure we get down to the root cause and look for good solutions to keep this from happening again. But I guess just as a high level, there an Ethernet switch that takes information from the control panels in the plant got bogged down when one of the PLCs, a power supply, failed. So it basically put the Ethernet switch into a loop and would not let it call out any information. And once it got to that state, the plant shut itself off. Unfortunately, it was when it locked down, it did not allow any of the alarms to get out to anybody to come out, so they could go out there and handle it. So we didn't know about it till the staff showed up at I think it was about 7:20 in the morning. White Marsh immediately got a hold of BPW and our internal staff to start troubleshooting, diagnosing. We were very lucky in that Mother Nature decided to show up too, and she dumped 1.25 inches of rain on us. So it didn't make the efforts easy as far as containing everything, but staff did a great job. Darren's guys pitched in, they came over with their vac truck and everything else. So we know what the issue was as far as the broken part. And now we're working together, BPW, White Marsh, and Keystone, which is the controls integrator. And we're coming up with a backup to the backup system that its only job is to just, when there's, even if it's just a general alarm, get an alarm out there, and it's just not part of that system. So it'll be a little separate. But that's a high level view of it. DENREC was involved from the get-go, so they were well aware of it. The actual amount of wastewater spilled was, for all intents and purposes, was small, 2,000 gallons. Like I say, Mother Nature made it look worse than what it really was. We had, nobody wanted to go outside, I can tell you that. We all looked pretty wet as we were trying to get around the property. But that's where we're at right now. We don't have an overall big report yet. But I think everybody, Darren, White Marsh, our discussions are ongoing as far as, how to make this good and keep this from happening moving forward.
On discussions with Darren, I understand we're still not 100% sure on what all happened as far as the alarms and controls are concerned, and the call-in, the call-out alarm system. We're still working on that?
Yes. Yeah, Keystone is working on that for Darren.
Okay.
Paul, do you have, so one of the things that happens is that they give a 5-day report to DENREC. Paul, do you anticipate that there's anything beyond that 5-day report that we need to do? Have you heard anything back from DENREC on that?
I have not heard anything back from Nicole. Nicole Smith is the point person at DENREC that who's in charge of the plant permit-wise, that kind of thing. So she has not said that there's going to be any further action from this. With the, I'm not saying it could never happen, but with the small amount, normally they come out, do an inspection, which they did. Jenna Saxon from her department came out. They look, make sure that you're doing the right things as far as cleanup, that you've got it controlled. And they also look to make sure that, when you do your 5-day report, that you discuss, that you're looking for ways to engineer a solution so that it doesn't happen again, which we addressed all of those things with the 5-day letter. I believe that it's we should be good moving forward. I don't have any expectations that something is going to come out of this. It had, it was really totally unrelated from the previous issue in December.
Yeah. Anything else?
Thank you.
Press, this is my
Yes,
call.
go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Can we get a motion to agree to and accept Secretary's Order number 2020-W-0025?
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
That was quick. Thanks, Tom. Item 11, open forum general discussion of the 2 capital budget projects, Cedar Avenue and Phase 24 street improvements. Mr. Gordon?
Yes, so I apologize. The first agenda I sent out said there was 3 items to discuss. We're only going to talk about 2. I have, first of all, we have the, let's go first to the Phase 24 street improvement. This is a project for Coleman Avenue. This is in conjunction with the city. The city is going to be repaving the street. They're going to be redoing the sidewalks and all of the ADA required ramps on the ends. We are going to be renewing the water line and taking care of valves and plumbing as we need inside of that. GMB has done the engineering on it. They've also brought out and shown with the paperwork that they've shared the breakup of what we pay for and what the city pays for, how that's shared. Our portion is $329,053. And I did not have that in our capital budget. And so I'm here to ask you that we include that in our capital budget, that we move forward with it. And it is my strong recommendation that we do that. We have with us Charlie O'Donnell, we've got Vince Luciani, and Josh Elliott of GMB to help answer any questions you have on that. I think, Robert, you had a couple.
Many of my questions were answered with discussion directly with Darren and also reviewing the enclosed materials that gave the breakdown in detail. So my questions are answered. The only question I have is, if approved, when would the construction or the improvements begin?
So we met with the city today and they approved their portion of the project. So if the board were to approve it tonight, we would send out the agreements with JJID Inc., who is the lowest responsible bidder on the project. Immediately, we'd send those out and look to have a pre-construction meeting mid-September with construction out in the field starting shortly thereafter, maybe October 1st. It's a 105-day contract, so we're looking at the end of the year for completion.
This has nothing to do with anything except the impact it has on the citizens on Coleman Avenue. That's a very narrow street and parking is on both sides of the street. What's the plan for residents being able to access their property during this construction?
Yeah, we talked about that today with the city council. There's going to be intermittent closures of the street as they do the water main work and even as they put in the road. So, you know, we'll have an inspector on site that just needs to coordinate with those residents. They're excited about it. We've met with them and they, you know, we like to meet with the public and give them some sense of the disturbance that they're going to experience. We did that. They're really excited about the project. So hopefully that excitement will translate into working through some of these disturbance issues. There's going to be some, no doubt.
But if I'm hearing you correctly, it'll sort of be like what we did on Gills Neck Road, where you had ability to pass traffic on part of the road while you're still working on the other half or other side.
Yeah. Now with the water main installation, the disturbances will happen during the day intermittently, but at the end of the day, the contractor will be required to backfill their trench and the road will be passable overnight.
Good, thank you.
Charlie, I'd just like to add to that. Many of the residents from Coleman Avenue were on our meeting today, and they all expressed appreciation for the project moving forward, and we're very anxious to get it going. So I think that Charlie has done a great job of informing the residents of what could be expected, and they're excited about the ability to get the street rehabilitated and, of course, the new infrastructure in the ground. So I think I'm not anticipating a problem with the residents feeling that they're not being heard or any difficulties. The only delay that might occur, Charlie, that we did talk about was whether or not we decided to go ask for some support from CTF funding for some portion of that project, which might delay it a couple of weeks or so while we went through that. But we'll know the answer to that fairly soon.
Okay. I want to emphasize that the project is not only Coleman Avenue, that it's 4th Street between Savannah and Kings. So that's all included in that $300 and some thousand number of the boards. We're replacing the water main on that street too, because the city's addressing that street as part of this project.
Is Coleman only water?
Yes.
Okay.
Both projects are only water.
One of the things that I have not cleared with either the mayor or Anne Marie talking to the city is that we would like to, we plan on allowing JJID to use the Schley Avenue yard for the laydown yard for their materials. They're close enough. They're close enough there that to make them go all the way down to the wastewater treatment plant, that's not a very, that doesn't make sense to us.
Okay.
Also, their time frame of work is going to be from the standard 7 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the evening. Unless they want to go outside of that, they would have to get the permission from the mayor and city council on that. We always do.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to let be known that there will be Schley Avenue property being used as a laydown yard during that project.
Okay. Well, let's plan to talk about that a little bit more. If we can move it, the further we can move it away from Franklin Avenue, the better we are. Okay.
All right. Charlie, what is the duration of the project?
105 days, consecutive calendar days.
Okay. And that's so long as, plus weather,
Right.
weather becomes a real issue when you're doing lay down of asphalt. So
Exactly.
just put that out there as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Was there a discussion of using, or asking the school district if we could use the demolition area around the Lewis School as a laydown area?
I don't recall that.
Not that I'm aware of, no, but, you know, we usually talk about that with the contractor at the pre-construction meeting, so we can get prepared for that.
Yeah.
I mean, just because the vicinity, the closeness to that construction site, if we could consolidate the laydown area, it might help us out with the Schley Avenue issue.
Exactly. The other thing is, I think if we could move ahead with the fence that we've told the residents on Franklin that we're going to install on the on that property, that would help a long way to making them feel more comfortable in terms of sooner rather than later.
What's your schedule on that, Darren? Didn't you have a date or something for that fence? I know it was postponed.
We're waiting for Chinbro to get out of there, then the contractor can start scheduling it.
So if that could be done.
I don't have it scheduled yet.
Okay. Let's revisit this whole laydown area again offline, okay?
Okay.
All right, that's fine.
All right, so I'm going to request that we agree to that project in our for our capital budget this evening. The second item that we wanted to talk about was that we have the project for Cedar Avenue. Cedar Avenue, we're looking at redoing the water main, redoing the sewer mains on Cedar. And we've been into that works. And then last month, press came up and said, let's consider doing all of the side streets. So Charlie and his and GMB have done a great job of taking a look what it would cost. Charlie, you want to go through that a little bit, where we're at?
Yeah, the long and short of it is that we're looking at a $5 million project for Cedar Avenue, which is extending completely from Savannah Road all the way to the yacht club. It's nearly 10,000 feet of water main that would be replaced, and all the services to remove any lead water services and install new plastic. And to add in all the side streets, which includes all the connecting streets between Cedar and Bay, and all the streets leading from Cedar to the canal, with the exception of a few of the cul-de-sacs nearest to Savannah Road that already have PVC pipe. And in addition, there's a section of Bay Avenue from basically the Children's Beach House to Main Avenue to the yacht club that was not replaced as part of that project 10 years ago, that would need to be replaced. When we looked at that, doing all that work, it comes up to be 20,000 feet of water main. So you're basically doubling the amount of water main. And it moved the cost of the project, the cost estimate of the project, to approximately 8.3 million. So it's like a $3.3 to $3.4 million increase to do the work on all the side streets, all the streets leading towards the canal, and that portion of Bay Avenue. So just, to give you some perspective, that pipe on Bay Avenue dates to the 1930s. It's old cast iron pipe. And almost all of the side streets, all of the side streets are 1950s era 10-inch, not 10-inch, but cast iron pipe. And that's the purpose, is that we want to eliminate all the iron pipe that causes discoloration and problems for the board.
I would add just a little bit of other information. So if we were to go with that 8.3 million, I would recommend to you that we would find a funding source, probably looking at the state revolving fund, At least that would be one. And if we did that, the cost of that would also increase because that would become a Davis-Bacon prevailing wage cost. And if we were to increase that by from 20 to 25% because of that, then we're pushing it up into the $10 million plus for that project. It's my recommendation that we just back off, do the Cedar alone and keep it at a 2-year project. And that makes it a more apt, something that we can work into our capital budget, and we're able to do that on our own without that going out for additional funding. So that's just simply my recommendation. Please ask your questions of Charlie.
So the question on efficiency or cost effectiveness. So doing the entire 20,000 feet of pipe would be 8.3. And you're saying doing the original Cedar, which is about 10,000, is 5 million. How much would the whole project cost at the end of the day if we did Cedar separately and the side streets separately? So I assume that there's a mobilization efficiency and a reopening of the streets efficiency. So I'm looking for, life cycle cost on the two options.
Yeah, I have Vince and Josh here. Maybe they can speak to that. I don't remember us talking about that or me thinking about that.
So actually, Tom, this is Vince. And when we did the cost assessment, we did not look at any economies of scale when we went from the 5 to the 8.3. So we used the same unit prices, for the additional work that we did for the Cedar alone. So I think you're correct that there would be economies of scale and some savings there, but that's not in the numbers that Charlie just presented. And what you're asking, I think, is it's pretty hard to put a number to. I guess I would say to you, generally, I would agree that there would be economies of scale, but for budgeting and the numbers we presented, they're not there. We're not showing those right now.
Would
Darren and I had that same
going to
conversation
prevailing
as well.
offset going to prevailing wage rates?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
Since if we had to go out and get a state revolving loan, we'd have to pay prevailing wage.
Right.
Is it reasonable to think that the increase by going to prevailing wage would be offset by the lack of having to mobilize twice and reopen every intersection again?
All I can say about that is that what we usually use as a rule of thumb for using the prevailing wages is a 20% increase in project cost. So that would be about $1.6 million for the larger project, the whole beachside project. And so you'd have to say whether your economy of scale would be worth $1.6 million. Something tells me it probably wouldn't be that much, but it would be, something significantly less, maybe 25 to 40% of that.
One of the things that we did discuss is that Cedar is still a state road. It's a DelDOT road. And so the chances of us being able to get that done in one construction season of our 7 months is just not very likely to happen. And so it would still be in 2 chunks, even with trying to knock it all out at once. And so that was another kind of a struggle timing wise. You'd still have a double mobilization fee. Vince and Charlie or Josh, am I speaking out of line?
No, that's exactly right. Possible, Darren, it's possible if the timing was just perfect as far as when we bid the job, when it was awarded. If we started October 1, which is the earliest we could start, it's possible that we could do all of Cedar by May, which is when we need to stop work. But everything would have to click perfect in terms of start date. If we missed it by a month or 2, I'd say it's going to end up being a two construction season project.
Couple of comments that might be worth throwing into the mix here. If you'll recall, when we did Bay Avenue, we originally thought that was going to be a 2-year project as well. And when we got down to, and we made as much progress as we did having a relatively mild winter, The residents were willing to live with the inconvenience into May and early June. And
I
I'm
remember
wondering
that.
if-
Yep.
So we have, we're talking about the same length of a road, basically. So there may be the possibility to get it done in a year. The other question I have is, have you looked at the condition of what's in the ground on all the streets to connect between Cedar and Bay? Are they in the comparable condition to what's on Cedar, or are they better or worse? What's the story there?
We do not have a.
Condition of the water main, Mayor, or the
Yes, exactly.
We don't have a lot of coupons that we
Same.
take out of those pipes to look at.
Are they the same age as
it's
Cedar?
the same age. That's all we know, is that it's the same
So
age.
chances are they're the same condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all, the earliest is the early, or the youngest is the early 60s, but we've got some pipe out there that dates back to the teens or 20s of the.
Well, especially as you get closer to Savannah Road, you're going to have pipe out there that dates into the 20s.
Yes.
And so I guess, my question is, if we know it's that old, should we look at the larger scale project? Because you're just going to have to reopen. And you're going to have repair work at the intersection every time you put in a water main on any of those, whether it's East Canal, West Canal, you take the name of the street, and you're going to have repair work at every one of those intersections, which is going to drive the overall cost up in the long run.
Could we just do areas rather than going all the way down Cedar? Then maybe, do the Cedar and the cross streets 1 year, and then do the other half the next year, go up to the Children's Beach House, and then next year do cross streets and Cedar as a separate project.
Might be a better way to approach it, perhaps.
We could certainly look at that. I mean, we could break it
So-
up into 2 projects or 3 projects that go from the yacht club to the beach house, and then maybe the beach house to Savannah Road, or maybe break that into 2. We could look at that. Vince, you were going to say?
I was going to kind of speak to the mayor's point, I think, that he's making there. So if we do Cedar alone, right, that scope of work, all the side streets will need to be tied into this new main.
Right.
And we're going to have a new section of water main that'll be stubbed, I'll just use that term, stubbed out to get across Cedar and connect into the existing main on those side streets. We're intending to do that connection behind the Del Dot right-of-way line. And then, so if you wanted to go, that would be the time to go the full length of the side street, because you're opening up the pit already. We directional drill that. And to go that incremental distance all the way to Bay Avenue and connect in up at that end would not be tremendously, it's just more length. The effort of mobilizing the directional drill machine, et cetera, is going to be the same. But
Right.
if we decide to do just Cedar alone, we're going to stub out just beyond the Del Dot right away and connect in. And then if we came back at a later date, we would pick up where that stub is now and just replace the section in the side street, if you follow.
But then you still have all
Those
the heavy
streets are
equipment.
very short. I mean, so,
It would be a short section. It would be the length of those side streets,
yeah, I mean, that's,
side and south side.
I can tell you, I think you're going to have a bunch of unhappy residents who live on those side streets if they find out that they're still getting rusty water coming out of the water line that runs in front of their house, and you did Cedar Avenue, and the folks on Cedar Avenue have clean water, the folks on Bay Avenue have clean water, and the side streets don't. You're going to have some very unhappy people who live in who have those connections.
Is there a problem reorganizing this project so that we do chunks of areas rather than all the way up Cedar?
We're not so far into it that we can't adjust. This is a great discussion.
For my
and if-
information, what, just so I can get the numbers exactly right, tell me again what Cedar Avenue would cost by itself, and then what the side streets would cost by itself.
So It's $5 million roughly, actually $4.98 million for Cedar Avenue on its own. And then if you include the side streets and that portion of Bay Avenue that needs to be replaced with the Cedar Avenue project, it bumps the estimate up to 8.33 million.
Now, is that total 8.3 or is it 8.3 for the side streets?
Total 8.3.
Okay.
So it adds 3.3 million to the project.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And one thing that I should make clear is that when we did that estimate, we did not include any full overlay of the side streets. We just have the trench restorations to the city and board standards. We can go back and look at that if you desire to do so. But it's not in there right now.
Yeah, I think we should look at chunks going up, either whether it's 2 or 3 projects. And so we don't have to go out for loans. We can do it might delay everything a year on Cedar, but I think overall it might be a better project.
From a novice standpoint, not an engineer, but it seems logical that if you're going up Cedar and you're going to go onto the side street to put the connection, from there, I mean, you've got it open. Why not go all the way up to the end of the street? Then you're only going to have to redo the street once.
The only thing that bothers me a little bit about segmenting it into 2 or 3 chunks is we'd need to talk to DelDOT and just make sure that, because we got to get a DelDOT permit for the whole of Cedar Avenue. And so we need to make sure that what happens with the permit. We just got to make sure whether they would allow the project to be approved as a whole permit wise and then just installed over time, over 3 segments or 2 segments. We can ask that question.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't submitted anything yet to them, have we?
Oh, no. We're
Not for
just
this
really just getting into our design of Cedar
Yeah, so
Avenue.
now's the time.
So, I just wanted to point out that the estimate also includes, I know there was a discussion of I&I earlier. So the board in the spring had a video inspection done of all the sanitary sewer on Cedar, approximately 8,000 feet plus or minus sanitary sewer, and found that the sewer is in very good condition in terms of I&I and structural integrity. But we did find that there's a lot of infiltration in the manholes. Of course, the groundwater is very high. They're old manholes and they're all brick. So the estimate includes lining of all the manholes.
Yes, thank you, Vince.
Okay.
So
from a
Darren, if you
timeline
can,
perspective, when would we have to have a decision on exactly what it is we want to do going forward? Is there kind of a line in the sand for that?
No, not really. We're ahead of time, so this is slated to go. We were trying to push it forward to do it get the engineering completed and try and get something coming as a little bit this year, maybe hit the sewer, the manhole linings. But I think we've got time that we can schedule it. Again, I'm thinking, I know we want to get all this iron out as quick as we can, but the idea of, I think, segmenting it into 3 steps, that would really be a wise way of doing it, and that we could financially make that work.
Earl, we've had a problem with DelDOT in the past getting permits. They delayed us on Pilot Town Road, the work that's going on there. That took a long time to work things out. We were trying to get ahead of the game this time and have all these permits ready well in advance of the time we want to start construction. So Darren's really handling this with foresight so we can get it done in adequate time.
Great. Thanks for the clarification. I appreciate that.
Darren, if you can just, how much do we have budgeted for this and in what years for Cedar? I don't have the capital budget in front of me.
I do. Well, mute, I'm good. So what I have is for Cedar, parts A and B, I have 400,000 for this year, looking at engineering and, like I say, the taking care of manholes. And then next year I've got 2.5 million there and to finish it up the next. So that's what and I've got that plus the total of, I've got about 480,000 budgeted for it to take care of Cedar. So we'll have to look at increasing that to that 500. But that's where we're at. And so again, if we were to push that out a little bit, that would relieve us, and I think it'd keep us a little bit more steady.
You said 500,000. What were you talking about?
That's 5 million.
$5,000.
You got a decimal point missing there.
Yeah.
I apologize. Right. You're absolutely right. Oh, boy. 0.5 million. 0.48 million. 0.5 million.
Blame that on Jack Lesher.
Yeah, yeah, it was Jack's fault. I remember that now.
Hi, Charlie.
Make sure you.
He's never been good with numbers.
So this was already scheduled to go for 2 years anyway for construction. So the major construction is going to be in 21 and 22.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And
Oh, so if we split Cedar into 2 parts with the side streets, we could potentially still get it within the same time period.
Yeah, I think GMB internally needs to think about it a little bit, because as we discussed before, DelDOT's only going to allow you to work from October 1st to May 1st on Cedar Avenue.
Right.
So we got to, even if we break it into segments, we got to get all the Cedar work done, plus all the work on the side streets and Bay Avenue, et cetera. We just got to make sure that it fits into that October through May or to May time period efficiently if we break it into segments.
Charlie,
Go ahead,
it's
Josh.
not necessarily true about the LDOT not letting us work. Going to be more of a city restriction. Ben, can you mute?
Yeah.
So the cities, DelDOT's not going to make us, they'll let us work if we're not closing lanes. And this being in the shoulder, we're not going to be closing lanes. They'll allow for lane shifts, but no closures. So I just want to put that out there, that it's not really going to be on that end a restriction. But Cedar being heavily trafficked for the beach, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, that's going to be a problem with the city.
It's going to be an issue, but I think, we've gotten through it on Bay Avenue, and I think we have to look at it. If we break it into segments, it's entirely possible that it wouldn't be as disruptive. So I think when we look at the scope of the project, then we can kind of, how much of a chunk do you want to bite off and accomplish at one time?
Charlie,
Yes.
on the crossroads, with all the issues we've had with where the road is compared to the right of way there, are we sure that we're replacing the pipe? I mean, the pipe is presently in the right of way. Do we know that for matter of fact?
We know it based on some plans, but we need to have Emmett tone out the intersection so we can confirm it 100%. And I know he's done a lot of work out there already. I just need that last piece done so that we can check on that, Press.
This actually dovetails very nicely with another project, Charlie, you've been working on, and that is the establishment of the right-of-way on the side streets, on the streets between Bay and Cedar. I think staking that out next week will be also very helpful as we look at how much disruption would actually occur on those side streets. So this is a good opportunity for the city and the board to work together to get major improvements on a lot of different levels.
Yes.
Yeah, so just an interesting point is that Atlantic Surveying and Mapping did all the right-of-way survey for those connecting streets between Cedar and Bay, and gave us that survey data. We've incorporated it into our Cedar Avenue plan and all the field survey that GMB accomplished as well. So it was nice to have those as points to check back into and to establish those right-of-ways.
And you're going to stake that out, I believe, in the next couple of weeks, aren't you?
Yeah, we were going to wait until after Labor Day. We
Right,
were going to get it
no
all
problem.
staked out and then take pictures of any intrusions into the right-of-way from whoever.
I think taking pictures is going to be very important. I think
Yeah, yeah.
some of those stakeouts will probably disappear. Thank you.
All right.
So I don't know how you want to leave it in terms of moving forward. We can look into the breaking it into 2 or 3 segments.
I think that'd be a great idea if the rest of the board agrees.
I agree. I think, and we can compare numbers better that way as far as what doing it, the 2 different options are. But I mean, we've committed to trying to get rid of the iron as quickly as possible. So leaving 100-year-old pipe in the ground or 70-year-old pipe just doesn't, make sense. We should get it out as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
While staying within the budgets.
Yeah, I mean, and even if it drags to a 3rd year and we get the side streets done, I think it's worth it. I'm as hot to get rid of that iron as anybody, but I don't think I think we should do it right and do it without getting particularly into prevailing wage. That's first. I'd hate to do that and waste all that money.
Well, once you explain it to the people who live over there, I think they'll accept the idea.
Right.
If you go in the other way and you say, well, those of you who live on the connecting streets are going to have to live with the iron, I don't think that's going to be very well received.
Well, I don't think we were ever saying they're going to live with it. It was that you do Cedar 1 year and that they were getting
back
to be the year after.
You
So,
understand that point.
yeah. I mean,
Plus, aren't you,
not intend to leave the old pipe in.
Well, I understand that.
when you're doing the connection to the side street from Cedar, you're going to be banging around a little bit too, aren't you? Which is going to, iron pipe is going to possibly knock a whole bunch of crap off of it and make it even worse.
Exactly. Sure. Okay.
Earl, you were having some kind of a hard time breaking in there. Did you have some comments?
No, I think you and I kind of talked about this, and I do think breaking it up is the right thing to do financially to get out of some of the higher cost. That comment about the iron is, and I hadn't thought about that with the older pipes. Is there any way to mitigate some of that, coming off and going further down the pipe?
You mean as far as the tapping is concerned?
Yeah.
Well, we usually do wet taps. In this case, we might be able to, for most of those streets, close valves on either end at the Bay and Cedar Avenue end, which will minimize the amount of tuberculation and rust that comes off the pipe when we make the connection, but not that I'm aware of, Mr. Webb. Not too much that I'm aware of there. Sometimes we do wet tapping, and that probably is the most efficient way to do it in terms of disturbance, but it's very expensive to do that as well, compared to breaking a pipe and installing a T.
We just need to make sure that the people that live on that street know what's going to happen, so there's no surprises or disappointments in the process.
Got that right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Charlie, Darren, you guys clear?
I'm good. I think Charlie's got his direction. We'll move it forward.
Darren, let's reconvene sometime over the next week or so, and we'll get going on evaluating the segmented approach.
You got it. And we have Emmett is taking care of those intersections. And
Okay, good.
That information.
Great. One last question I have is, I just want to make sure phase 24 was officially approved.
That was my question. Thanks,
Yeah.
Charlie.
Okay. I don't know if you have to.
I'll make a motion to approve the phase 24 for Coleman and West 4th Street.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Charlie, Vince, and Josh.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
We're into new business, finally. Item 12, open forum, general discussion of RKL Human Resource Handbook, etc., consulting proposal and contract. Mr. Gordon.
President Lee and members of the board, since we no longer have any sort of a conflict of interest in that the creator of RKL is no longer on the board. We've gone to them and looked at their consulting in that they are able to consult in the human resources side. We have a contract in front of you for them to do specific, very specific 3 scope items. One is to take a look at our policy files, our handbook. It hasn't been looked at in several years, and that's one of the questions that comes through some of our fundings, et cetera, is whether or not it's been looked at by professionals in the field. We're also looking at our HR, how we're handling all of our human resources. And we're also going to be taking a look at our employees, their job descriptions, and what they're actually doing in that. And so this is a complete look at this. Part of this came from our previous treasurer saying that this is something we definitely needed to do. The quote is for the employee handbook review and updates, 5,000, human resources assessment, 8,000, and the compensation analysis, 16,500 for a total of 29,500. The length of time for them to accomplish this, they're saying it will take 3 to 4 months. And it's my recommendation that we move forward with this. It may have some other ramifications, and so we'd ask that Mike kind of take a look at that, where it's headed, and that we do it correctly. That's what I have and would request that you approve.
I think this is much needed, and probably should have done it well before now, but I think it's a very good thing moving forward to know where we are. Where we've been talking about, updating the office operations for the past few years. This is a major step to do that. Next, we'll get into the filing systems and so forth, make sure that we're up to date on the best ways to make that the most efficient and effective. So I think this is money well spent.
Well, look, if Jack says it's a good idea, I'm pretty sure it's a good idea as well. I know it sounds like I'm beating a drum too hard on this, but that's separations of duties. It's one of the biggest issues, I think, in smaller firms. If we can make sure that that's kind of layered into this process as well, so we understand how that's being handled and being documented, I think would be helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think, with the work that Robert Kennedy had done on the strategic plan, we have discussed this now for the last year. It's critical that we get the job descriptions updated for all the different staff members, and that we also look at, as we've talked about in the past, our salary compensation to make sure that we're keeping and attracting the best employees. But equally as important that our staffing levels are adequate. So I'm looking forward to the results of this, and I'm hoping that as we move forward that those specific items will get covered in their analysis.
And I think in the long run, our staff will appreciate this too, to know they're being adequately compensated and treated. Mike, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, this is something we've discussed before. Anything that?
Yeah, Press, the only thing I would mention, obviously, the substance of the report is the will of the board. So that's a question for you all. The only thing I would say in looking at this agreement, I've reviewed it. It looks fine as to form. There are a few things I'd like to tweak, and so my recommendation is if the board would like to move forward, entertain a motion to move forward with the study, but direct staff to work with council to finalize the contract.
Great, fine. Okay. Do I have such a motion?
Make a motion to have the staff work with council to approve the contract.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. Thanks, Darren. This is a good thing to do.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank
As well.
Thank you, Darren.
Okay, item 13, open forum, general discussion regarding the agreement to allow Lewis City Arts Committee to use the south-facing wall of the BPW power plant building for a project. Mr. Gordon.
Probably could have asked that this be removed from the agenda. It is my understanding that the artist and the art committee are not able to see eye to eye at this point in time, and that that's not going to go forward. But I believe we can still have kind of a discussion on what we want to have in an agreement for the next one that may come up. And so,
Darren, I might be able to offer a little bit more insight into that.
would you please?
They approved an alternate, and they have moved to the alternate.
Okay.
Yeah, I was at the meetings. Okay, so I can tell you what's going on. The artist who was chosen originally has a problem with the contract. So he has been told that someone else is going to have to be picked, and they have gone to the second choice. And at the moment, I think the second choice is agreeing.
Yeah.
So really, all they're asking us is that we paint the building white so that the artist can then do his work on the building. And I would like to see us do that because we got a free, the battery folks only painted the building on 3 sides, the front and the 2 sides and not the back. So we really got a free 3-sided painted building. And so I'd like to see us finish the job. And all they want to do is get a white primer kind of paint onto the back. Darren and I talked about it. Darren says, well, he was, I think, prepared to do it on Saturday, but that got pushed off a little bit. In any case, that's kind of where we are, and they're ready. The mural folks are ready to go.
Okay.
What about the privacy strips and the fencing? I mean, did that come up?
You mean the cross section, the metal part?
Yes.
It's on the building?
No. The chain link fencing around the property, I believe, the privacy strips woven through the weave.
Yeah.
Is that to be removed, remain in place, or affect the display of the art in any way?
That wasn't any thing. The only discussion was to move the Santa house, which has already been done, I think, right, Darren?
Yes, that's correct.
And because so the artist could get there. And no, the fencing was not discussed at all.
It's going to be an odd question, but is there any different paint we would use if we weren't doing this for it to be repurposed with art? Would it be the same paint that we would paint it with anyway?
Apparently, from what I understand, the paint that they're requesting is nothing more than something you go to Lowe's and get primer kind of paint. It's not. They're not asking for a special paint.
Okay.
Dan McAllister is preparing a document for the artist to sign for liability issues. Do you want to mention that, Mike?
Yeah, and I'm just, thanks, Press. Just trying to think through the logistics here. We have the document. It was not provided to the board. There was this question as to is it or isn't it going forward, and obviously the latest where it is. To make sure we stay, that we don't have to wait until the next board meeting. If the board is comfortable with it, again, recall the discussion was that the board wanted there to be basically a liability waiver in place, protecting the board for the work that's being done on the property. That is what we have drafted, and that is what we are requiring. So if we could entertain a motion verifying that the board is in support of the project going forward and directing staff to work with council to finalize the liability waiver for the artist to sign. I think that would then authorize us to finalize that.
Okay.
Cliff Diver, who is heading up this project, told me that the artist, the original artist, who's not going to be the original artist, that they all agreed to put the hold harmless agreement in there. So I think what you're saying is let's go forward a little bit and you can hash that out with them.
Two separate things, Mr. Owen. The first one is the city has its agreement, or the committee has its agreement with the artist, where
Okay.
my understanding is there was some concern with that language. Ours is a separate agreement because we are granting them access to our facility
Mhm.
for the painting, but B, we are requesting a waiver of liability for that work on ours. So
Mhm.
ours is specific to us. At Press's request, we have kept it simple, as simple as you can, and still include the provisions.
Mhm.
But instead of coming back to the board with the actual liability waiver, my suggestion, if the board is comfortable with it, is that you authorize me to work with staff to finalize that, and further the board's wishes that there be a liability waiver in place.
Would somebody like to make a motion to accept that?
Well, I'll make an emotion
Okay.
to accept what Mike said.
I'll second what Mike said.
Yeah. To go ahead with the project and let the staff work with our attorney to finalize the agreement, and also get the back of the building painted.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And just for the record, Mr. Kennedy, you seconded that.
I did, yes.
Thank you.
All right, that's all we have on the agenda. Call to the public. Anybody have any questions in the public?
We've got 3 folks out there. We've got Anne Marie, Bonnie Osler, and Tim Ritzert. We do have the Q&A available, so if you have any questions, please type it in.
While we're waiting for that, I'll call to the press too, in case Nick or anybody has any.
Nick is
Nick's not on the call anymore.
Not on the call? Okay.
Yeah, Nick dropped off. I don't see anything coming in from the public.
Okay. All right, well, then item 16, we'll go into executive session. So do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.